till 4:30. Is that right, Jim?
No, it's 4:50.
Okay. All right, well, we're in pretty good shape here. All right, so in a way, I want to go back to the beginning and cycle through this again, because we've actually talked explicitly about validation and about regulating emotion, but sometimes the first step is just to not make things worse, okay? Now, I have to say, when I teach families that we work with about this, the reason we don't start here is because these are such desperate situations. Not making it worse doesn't seem like a big thing. It doesn't seem like a good enough goal to sometimes. Like, no, I want to solve the problem. But sometimes the problem can't be solved right now. And not making the problem worse could be the best we can do. But don't forget, it's only right now. If Karen and I don't make the problem worse right now, we might be able to come back at it this evening, or tomorrow, or next weekend, or in a few weeks, and chip away at it again, continuously not making it worse, and maybe at some points lurching forward with a little bit of progress forward. And so over the course of 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, might actually make real progress, even in this moment, if we can't make it better, if we don't make it worse. If we don't take 2 steps forward and 2 or 3 steps backwards, okay? If we take a half a step forward and don't go backwards, and then the next time don't move forward or backwards, then maybe take another half step forward and don't move backwards. All of a sudden, okay, you could say it's glacial, but it's moving. If you've ever been to Yosemite Valley, glaciers can do amazing things. So how do we do this? Okay, the first thing is we have to interrupt our invalidating responses. Now this is hard because they're so automatic, right? You know, so I'm Karen's teenage son, and she gave me, how much does lunch money for the week cost? 25 bucks, $5 a day, would that work? So on Sunday, she gave me $25 for lunch money. It's Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning. Mom, I need lunch money.
What?
See what I mean? It's automatic. I need lunch money. You want me to go hungry? Fine, I'll go hungry.
What did you do with the money I gave you? That's what I want to know.
Never mind.
What did you do with it?
Never mind, I'll just go hungry.
I give you money every week, and then this happens every single time. What do you do with it? Cheap. Do you have any idea how hard I work to pay the bills around here? And you eat a lot, and the grocery bill is really high.
I'm supposed to feel guilty for eating a lot?
Well, you just don't understand money. If you're going to grow up and be bankrupt.
I don't do adolescents dysregulated very well. I don't even know what to say. I think I would have just left by now. Okay? So if she's going to interrupt that, right, the shock of I need money, okay? Now I'm the kid. I'm 15, I'm 16. I'm not saying, remember, I'm not saying, Mom, I know you work really hard, and I know you gave me 25 bucks on Sunday, but somehow along the way, I stopped and got a sandwich one day. I had some pizza with a friend, and I bailed Bob out who didn't have any money. I spent it all. I feel kind of bad about that because I know you work hard. I don't do this. I'm 15, okay? I don't do this. I say, Mom, I want some money. Give me some money. I need lunch money. That's what I say. Can she see that, right, the events behind my asking? Okay? Now, it could be that maybe she's thinking I spent that money on marijuana.
Mm-hmm. That was the second
Maybe I did. Mom, I need some lunch money.
Did you buy drugs again?
Why is it always drugs with you?
Because I found them in your room.
I want some food. What are you doing in my room? That's none of your business to be in there snooping around.
You don't get any privacy in this
Very
house
helpful,
as long as you're
right?
breaking the rules.
Very helpful, okay? So how are we going to help her interrupt her invalidation? So awareness of rising arousal, okay? That requires opening mind before mouth, right? So that requires, I would encourage, if I were your coach, not your child, I would encourage you this is kind of predictable. I'm going to do stuff that tweaks you. So when I do something, before you respond, take at least one deep breath and try to say to yourself, okay, I don't like this. What don't I like about it? I don't like it. I don't like it is a pretty descriptive statement. It's not bad. It's not blaming. I don't like it. Now, what don't I like about it? Is it the money? Is it your worries about what I'm doing with the money? And, okay, what else does she need to remember? Remember from the last time? She loves me. She really does. You know, like, come on. Yeah. You know. Okay, but she's forgotten that. Mom, I need money. It's like, okay. So let's try that. And managing, by the way, what emotion is that going to be? When I say I need money, you don't like it. Why don't you like it?
I feel guilty.
Okay. Why do you feel guilty? Is that justified?
I'm a single mom. I do the best I can. I want to give you more.
Okay. Going to give me more marijuana or more lunch? Just asking.
I want you to have everything.
Okay. But I want you to notice that you gave me $25 for lunch money. That's enough money for lunch for 5 days. I think it's reasonable. Maybe you want me to be able to get a pizza once in a while, too. Or maybe even experiment on a little cannabis now and then. Oh, not that? Okay, right?
Yeah,
so,
we can leave that.
So how about a little self-respect here? How about you're a single mother and you managed to give me enough money for me to have a really decent lunch every day? Maybe you could, the primary emotion here, maybe feeling guilty isn't really all that justified. Maybe you're doing a plenty good enough job.
I never thought of that. I just look at what other kids have.
Well, other kids you might buy me some like peanut butter and some bread and tell me to make my sandwich and take it to school. That wouldn't be the end of the world. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's a reasonable, that would also be reasonable. That would be cheaper than $25. You could buy me a loaf of bread and a half a jar of peanut butter and jelly for $10. You know, I get 5 sandwiches and, you know, I get 5 apples for, I don't know, 50 cents a piece, another $2, $3. You could, for half the $25, I could have a sandwich and a piece of fruit every day. That wouldn't be terrible, would it? You know?
Well, he always wants to go out, you know, and with his friends, and they're always buying dinner and
okay.
stuff.
Now, when I ask you for the money, though, notice the guilt turns into something else. How does you go from guilt to being angry?
Well, you know, I don't like feeling guilty. It makes me feel inadequate.
Right. Well, nobody likes feeling guilty, so maybe you could just notice the guilt and then smile at it and say, you know what, I'm doing okay here. I'm giving him lunch. In fact, what happened to the money? Maybe curiosity? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Okay. It's Wednesday morning. I'm about to run off to school. Mom, I need lunch money.
I thought, didn't I give you lunch money the other day? I thought I did.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Oh, well, what happened, sweetheart?
I don't know. I just kind of, we went out for pizza after school on Monday. Nobody else had any money. I kind of paid for the whole thing.
Oh, you know, I can really understand that.
Yeah, sorry.
That's sweet. That's really sweet. You know what? Maybe, let me see what I can work out today. Would it be okay if we packed your lunch today?
Yeah, that'd be okay.
Because I'm a little short on money. So let me pack your lunch today. And,
all right.
And I tell you what, how about if we...
I got to go, though, so can we do it now?
Yes, we'll do it right now. Come on, help me. What do you want? Let's see what we can get in the kitchen.
Whatever. All right. Now, how was that? That's good, right? Where's your guilt?
I'm going over.
Where's your guilt?
I told you I was going over before the day.
Where's your guilt?
Oh, it's gone.
I'm getting fed.
Yeah, and it felt close.
Yeah, relationship is fine. I'm actually pretty motivated not to buy pizza next time because now I'm thinking that you're actually working awfully hard for my friends to get pizza. That might not be the best thing for me to do. I actually have a little motivation without a lecture. No lecture. Accurate expression. I don't have to validate it in words. I can validate it in action. I cannot pay for the pizza next time. I can say, I can't. I got $2. I can pay for a slice. I can't buy you pizza. I can do that differently. Okay? Self-validation. In this case, the primary emotion, what was your primary emotion? When you push the guilt aside, what'd you find?
Sadness.
Sadness, and I heard a little curiosity too. Like, how come? Why? Reasonable, not challenging. Yeah, the second time.
Sorry.
Not challenging, like, why? Why do you need it? But like, that's interesting.
Let me understand.
Let me understand it. Where'd the money go? What happened? Is this something we have to problem solve? Is it, who knows what happened? Maybe I, had to pay my gym fee.
Maybe
I spent it on the gym fee. Maybe I lost it. Maybe I bought marijuana. I'm probably not going to tell her that. Okay, so if in the past I have used some money to buy drugs or marijuana, on the way out the door, first of all, the timing is wrong, right? At that point, she's going to make me a sandwich or help me make a sandwich and send me off. And then later, she's going to have a conversation with me about that. So we're not going to use this moment to sort that out. Timing is everything in that case. And later, then she might say, just honestly, I don't know, how would you say it? Now it's after dinner tonight, and you're a single mom. It's just the two of us, or maybe there's a little brother or sister, but now who isn't in the room? Then what do you say?
And then I would observe and describe. I might say, Alan, hey, can we talk for a minute, sweetheart? Look, this morning when you told me that you didn't have lunch money, I'm noticing that since a month or so ago when we had the problem.
I'm panicking.
When we had that problem with marijuana, things have been going so much better. Your grades have been up. And sweetheart, I love you so much, and I just have to ask.
I feel so guilty.
And it just has to come out my mouth because I want to know. The money, did it have anything to do with drugs?
Maybe.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about that. Let's see if we can problem solve.
It was very hard. It was really hard. I couldn't lie, right? I could look in the room. I won't look at her. It's very hard. I'm not saying I couldn't do it if I practiced it enough, okay? Okay? But it's very hard. It's hard to do, okay? And plus, I'm sending her signals, right? What do you think? What do you think? Do I look like somebody who's feeling guilty? Or now, what if I really didn't? What if I was the pizza thing? I'd say, it wouldn't be hard. It would be easy to look at her and say, do I feel bad about that? A little, right? I mean, a little. Is it the end of the world that I bought pizza for my friends? It's really not. I mean, it's a lesson to be learned. But, we're not going to ship me off for, some prison camp for this, okay? It's like, I feel I bought pizza, Why can I look at her in the eye? Because if Bob comes in the room half an hour later, she could actually ask Bob, how was your pizza? And he'd say, it was good. I got nothing to hide. I don't have to feel embarrassed. I feel a little bad. I feel a little bit guilty, but it's not a capital offense, So.
And I don't know if you can sense it or not, but in me, there is no anger and there is minimal upset. It's like I'm really confident that if he says yes, that we can deal with this. I'm really confident that I'll be able to know by looking at his face. I'm really confident that if I don't get it this time, I'll get it next time. And
That's right. And you're not going to help me not use marijuana by screaming at me.
Right.
It's actually not going to help me. So, good, cool. Okay. After we let go of the invalidation, then we can turn our attention to the other person. And that's what Karen was doing masterfully. Now, relationship mindfulness means that we're paying attention to the other person, okay? So in order to do that, this is actually a neat trick. We have to let go of judgments or assumptions about what the other person's thinking or feeling and actually try to use our knowledge of facts and the other person and the circumstances, okay, to not interpret, to say, okay, what really is going on? So, I don't know, what's another provocative situation with a teenager or a young adult child or a partner? What's a...
Sex.
Having sex, okay. How old is she? 15. Talk to your mother. No.
Which one?
Good question. So why am I worried about this? Why am I worried? She coming home late? I don't know who she's with. What's tweaking my worry? All of the above. Okay, how old? 15. Okay, so Karen comes home late, So, where you been? What's up?
Over at my friend's house.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes, Dad. I'm going upstairs.
I'll let her go. Tomorrow morning, after breakfast.
Hey, Dad.
Hi. What do you want for
We
breakfast?
got any pancakes?
Yep, your favorite with blueberry syrup.
That's Marcia. That's not me.
Oh, sorry.
I like strawberry.
Oh, then we'll have strawberries. So we got both. It's easy.
Oh,
enough.
great. Okay.
All right. So
All
we
right.
have some breakfast. So,
Okay, I have to eat fast, Dad. I have to get
all
out
right.
of here.
Well, 5 minutes. 5 minutes first.
Well, I'm
Hey,
going to call my friend.
yeah, hang on. Can you hang on for
Okay.
5 minutes?
Okay.
So, I'm a little worried.
Oh, your Dad. You're
I
always
know.
worried.
Well, sometimes.
Worry.
So I'm wondering, okay, and how, I'm not trying to, I don't know what's going on in your head. Okay, I'm trying to be mindful of her, and I realize I don't know. So I've got to know, I just don't know. This is a big step for me, okay? I know that I don't know. Instead of making assumptions, making accusations. So I'm looking at her, and I'm saying, I guess I'm wondering. I'm worried, but I don't know if it's, realistic or not, but what you're doing last night. Because you used to tell me if you're going.
Here we go again, Dad.
No, it's not again. You used to tell me if you were going to Susan's house. You used to say, I went to Susan's house. But the last couple times, you said a friend. Now, I was a teenager once. And a friend is usually a euphemism for a male friend.
So what's wrong with having male friends?
Didn't say there's anything wrong with it. But if you're hiding something like that, I just wonder what else
I'm hiding my friend.
Well, you didn't tell me. Where were you last night?
Why does it matter?
Because I love you and I just want to make sure you're okay.
I was perfectly okay. I'm 15 and
What
you
is that?
don't need to worry about me like I'm a little kid.
Yeah? Okay.
Right.
Okay, but what do you, as a parent, I worry about stuff like safety, sex,
Dad!
drugs.
Dad, who do you think? You always think the worst of me.
No. I'm hoping you're having a great time and that it's safe without sex and without drugs. Is it possible to have a great time that's safe and without sex and without drugs?
You
Is
are
that possible?
so old-fashioned.
You are not answering my question, sweetie.
Yes, it's possible.
Is it possible that one or more of those things has been occurring anyway?
I can't. If I tell you, you're just going to blow up, and I'll be
Okay.
grounded for the rest of my life.
Okay, well, I have no interest in grounding you for the rest of your life.
Really?
Mostly because I can't. But I actually don't want to.
Okay, so you ground me for until I'm out of high
No,
school.
how about we just get this out on the table so we can. My goals, I'm just being clear about them. Safe, no sex, no drugs. That's my goals. So if you're getting sucked into one of those things, I want to help you get pulled out of them. That's mine.
But what if I don't want them? I mean, what if I'm
Well,
having...
let's have a talk about that. What is it that you don't want to do?
Look, everybody. Look, I will be totally.
I still don't know which it is, right? I'm dying to find out.
I will be so, and I won't have any friends at all. If I don't do things that everybody. It's what we do now. You just don't understand.
What is it that we do now? I can't understand if you don't tell me.
All right, I got a boyfriend.
Okay.
And he really loves me, and I don't care what you say, he really loves me. And we're old enough, we know what love is. You're going to say, you don't know what love is. I do know what love is.
Okay, I'm doing a lot of emotion self-management right now. I got a couple of crowbars that are trying to open my mind so I don't open my mouth yet, okay? So I got to say, on the one hand, I'm kind of happy for you if you found somebody that you really like.
Really?
And who likes you back.
Really? No, he loves me.
Okay.
And I love him.
Okay.
Really.
That sounds like it might be kind of sweet.
It's love.
Well, love can be kind of sweet, kind of nice.
Sweet sounds like, chocolate chip cookies, Dad.
What's better than that?
No, it's adult, Dad.
I've got 5 failed marriages. I'm not, I'm a little cynical,
It's adult.
Okay, so
it's a grown-up love.
Now, okay, so does that mean, who is it? Tell me about him.
What are you going to do?
I'm not planning on doing it. I'd like to meet him, but I mean, besides that, I just want to know about him. Does he go to school? Where do you see him? How old is he? Does he treat you well? Those kinds of things.
Yeah,
Safety first. I'm interested in safety.
He treats me great,
Yeah?
Dad. He loves me.
Yeah?
And he's
Respects
good to me.
you?
Yes, yes, Dad.
Yeah? How old is he?
22.
Good to have a gun safe. Okay?
Texas.
That's why
You're in Texas.
I thought that I was in Texas, but obviously I'm not understanding. I live in the Wild West too, Okay, so now this is obviously tricky. And at this point, I would recommend just like letting it go for now. And actually, seriously, it's Sunday morning. I don't know where she's going. We're going to find out where she's going. 22 and 15, we got a little problem going on here. Okay, we got to work on this. But I need to regroup. I need to think about this. I need to think about what the best way to approach this is. I might need to enlist somebody else besides just me. So, we've got to do some problem solving. So right now, though, I really have to stop. I have to not make it worse. I have to not blow our relationship up. And I might just say like, okay, well, let me think about this. Obviously, that's, this is hard to hear. I mean, he's a lot older. So let me think about this, and we'll talk some more about it later.
I think it's a critical moment here, too, because she knows this is an explosive, even a 15-year-old would know that
Sure.
this is an explosive issue.
Right.
And so in almost anything, I'm like hyper-aroused.
Right.
And I'm watching you.
And if I can modulate it, actually, I don't know what it felt like to you, but I think if my guess is if I can modulate that, that's actually going to make it easier for you to then maybe talk about you having some concerns.
Yes.
You might feel a little vulnerable being 15 with a 22-year-old.
Right.
It might be nice in a way, in a small way, it might be nice for you, for me to say, you can't do this. In another way, that's terrible.
But not in that moment.
But not in this moment.
Because I'm aroused and ready to defend.
Okay. Can you see that? Like, I'm really not interested in allowing her, my 15-year-old, to have sex with a 22-year-old. I am not interested in allowing that. Can I be clear about that? But notice, being validating of the valid does not require me to pop a gasket right now. That would lead to some relationship problems that actually could send her off doing it secretly, and I mean, it's not going to be easy to stop. We have to maintain some kind of relationship if we're going to manage it together. Okay? Does this make sense? Right. Part of it is accepting the reality that my 15-year-old has been having sex with a 22-year-old. And I got to kind of start to live with that reality, which I probably don't like very much. Well, I don't like it at all. Exactly. That's why I've got to manage to put that into my reality and live with it safely before I want to open my mouth again. And I want to do that quickly before this continues. I mean, but I could take a half an hour on Sunday morning after breakfast, okay? I don't have to do anything this minute, okay? She's going to be home today, or she's going to be out with her friend Susan today, and I could get some clarity that she's really with Susan. That's the kind of thing. I don't have to worry about this. But I'm disappearing. I have to worry about it, but I don't have to act on it. I can be planful. I can keep the relationship open and go from there.
I think that when you're aroused, there's a sense of urgency that comes with that.
Right.
And many times it's a false sense of urgency, because actually acting on that urge to do something right away is often not the wisest decision.
Right. Because it may turn out that she's had sex once and she really regrets it. And if I don't polarize with her, she comes back on my side, she's scared and doesn't know what to do. Could be this has been going on for months, you know, and she really enjoys it and doesn't see the problem in it. Okay, they're very different scenarios, and I don't know which of those it is yet. And I've got to get myself steady and solid before I am going to get that information. If I yell at her, scream at her, criticize her, even criticize him, that's going to polarize. And what are the chances of me getting accurate information? They go down. So now this is really difficult. Okay. Now, and there are all kinds of, if it's your 30-year-old child, it's probably not that he or she is having sex with a new boyfriend or girlfriend. It's probably that the money you thought you were giving for rent, went to drugs, okay, or gambling, or something that's not their rent, okay? So it's something like that. There's something that feels lousy. There's some dishonesty of some kind, either by omission or commission. And then we can get stuck in all kinds of big words like betrayal. And I would encourage you to be careful with those big words. They're loaded. Like, I can't trust you. That's not true. If I ask you what time it is, are you going to tell me what time it is? So I can trust you to tell me what time it is. You're not going to lie to me about that. If you say you have to go to the toilet, do I think that you're lying? No, you're probably being honest with me about that. There are all kinds of things I can trust you on, and one thing I can't. That's very different than saying I can't trust you. I can't trust you is a big statement, big, loaded statement. I can't trust you not to have sex with your boyfriend. Well, I can trust her to have sex, actually, with her boyfriend. I can't trust her to do it and tell me about it ahead of time. Okay. Can I live with that? I better. Okay? So if we stay away from these big concepts like not respecting me, not trusting you, I mean, these are big things that all they do is get us into hot water. They get us polarized. All right, so we're going to try, if I can manage my own emotion, I'm going to try to bring my attention, and this is exactly what Karen did, to the other person. Okay? Well, actually, sorry. In this one, I was doing it with Karen. I was trying to say, okay, what is she doing? I don't know. Okay, what's my experience? My caring, my love, my connection. Okay, sweetie, I noticed that you used to always tell me, oh, I'm going to Susan's house. And the last night you didn't say, you just said a friend. That's strange. I'm just noticing that. Okay, maybe that means nothing, but I'm not stupid. It probably means something. Okay, I don't know what it means. Could be big, could be small. I don't know. And what's my response? How am I feeling about this? Can I manage my emotion? What's my emotion, by the way? Fear, exactly. I'm afraid that she's making some decisions that are going to end up being very harmful, that she'll be exploited, that she'll get pregnant, that she'll be harmed, okay? That she's, too young to handle this. Yeah.
I notice, and it seems to be a recurring thing, that there's a little bit of digression whenever things get heightened.
Yep.
You'll kind of deflate it a little bit.
Yep.
Whatever it may be. What about people who have an issue? What about people who have an issue whenever you bring a conflict to them, ever getting resolution? They're perfectly happy just blowing you off as long as you're digressing.
Oh, that's a great question. Right. So if I put you off, there's two possibilities. One is that you're very happy to put it off, okay? And in that case, I've got to be clear and say, well, let's talk about this some more tonight, okay? And then I've got to follow it up. I've got to block the exits and say, okay, no, I don't want to make this World War III, but not talking about it is not okay. We've got to sort of. I want to, but it's still on the table, okay? The other possibility is we're having an argument that if I want to withdraw a little bit, saying, look, let's talk about this later, it's because I'm no longer able to manage my emotion very well. You could feel like I'm abandoning you. You want to talk about it, and I don't. So if I'm the grown-up or one of the grown-ups, okay, it's very important to say, I just need to get this. I got to find a place for this in my head. I'm not. I'll be back, When do you want to talk about it some more? Sooner or later? 15 minutes is enough, but it could be tonight, it could be tomorrow. So you don't feel like I'm abandoning you, okay? That's the other part of it. So if I say, my head is starting to smolder, I just can't take it anymore right now. Okay, so I just need a break. But I want to, I absolutely, I know you want to talk about it. I love you. I'm not just blowing you off, okay? I know this is important to you. So when do you want to talk about it some more? You know, give me at least 10 minutes, you know.
So it's not that you're skirting the issue.
Not at all.
Them out all the time.
Exactly.
To the point where you know them down and you have that.
That's right. We're not going to collude to never talk about it again. Yeah. Oh.
If they see you vulnerable, then it
Right.
lets them know that that's okay to be vulnerable.
Most teenagers will say it's much, much harder to deal with their parents' disappointment than their parents' anger. You know, the honesty, you know, the accurate disclosure. Yeah.
What if you're in an adult relationship and you're trying to pull back, you know, when someone's, you know, emotionally out of control, and no matter what you say or do, you know you're wrong. You can't go back there and attack.
Yeah, you got to go chop the carrots. You got to get out of the way. You got to create space. But with a reassurance that you'll come back. Look, this is not a good time. This isn't working. I know it's driving you crazy, but I can't do this right now, okay? We also have a little strategy in our clinic, which we affectionately call toilet mindfulness. Is to say, you know, sorry, nature calls, I gotta go. And, you know, most partners, kids, parents won't follow you into the toilet. And you know, bring a magazine, you know. You don't have to read it, you know, you can just relax. You don't have to actually sit on the toilet, you know, you can. And actually, you got to get a little space. And don't forget, it's not just space for me if I'm the one that's taking the space. It's also giving you space. And remember that how long it takes to calm back down? For some of us, that's, you know, that doesn't take that long. But for other people, it takes a little longer. And so I want to make sure there's enough space for, I might actively work on calming myself down, but maybe you aren't. So I got to have a little bit longer because you're not actively trying. Okay, so, but at least if one of us is more regulated, it's going to go better. That's the idea. Okay? So, and again, there's self-validation. By the way, I don't like this is a great generic description. Okay? Because it gives us time to notice whether I don't like it is because I'm afraid, is it because I'm disappointed or I'm sad, or is it I feel guilty? Rarely is it anger, or at least rarely is it only anger. Anger actually is not usually the main thing going on. It's the main place we end up, but it's not really what's there in the beginning. The anger comes with the judgments, not with the event, okay? So if I'm not judgmental and she's having sex with a 22-year-old and she's 15, if I'm not judgmental, and I'm encouraging you not to be judgmental, okay, what have I got? How am I feeling? Without the judgment, what's left? You get fear, and what else? Some compassion. This is not easy for her. How do I feel about this guy? Without the judgment, without the judgment. Hmm? Yeah, so, well, if he's going to jail, I might have compassion and relief. Hmm? Yeah. Well, but I mean, honestly, without the judgment, there's curiosity. Like, what's up with this guy? Is this guy making a really bad mistake that's just sort of immature? Or is this guy a predator that's really dangerous? I don't know. Right, maybe she said she was 19. You know? I mean, there's a lot of things we don't know. So without the judgment, what's there are some very different emotions. It's easy to be angry, right? And I would say that's it's quite ordinary to be angry, but I would also say that if the more angry we let ourselves be, the more we miss the other emotions. And that's tricky, because if we miss the other emotions, we get dysregulated.
And you miss the big picture.
Yeah.
You know, when you take the judgment out.
We have a relationship. Why am I worried about this? I'm worried about this because of Karen's development as a teenager and her ability to pick reasonably safe partners who aren't going to exploit her and have good judgment about who she decides to sleep with. You know, I'm worried about those things. Those are developmental steps that maybe aren't going so well. I got to help here. I got to help her do something different here. This is not boding well for the next few years. Do we think this is going to be isolated if we don't do something about it? You know, I don't know. So I'm worried. I'm really worried. You know, there's a lot to worry about. All right. So I'm going to look deeply at her experience. What is it? You know, she went on and on about how she was really in love. Anybody, I'm old enough now, it's hard for me to remember this, but anybody remember falling in love when you were 15? Okay. Now, in all honesty, did that feel at 15 like what love felt like at 30, if you're 30 or older? Is it the same? Of course you wouldn't know. You'd have no idea at 15. But it was warm and intense and lovely and attractive, wasn't it? And, you know, and without poo-pooing it, it was big, right? Big. I mean, genuinely big and lovely, I think. You know, it's a long time ago. So, but, you know, it's different at 30 or 50 or something. I think it's different. But that doesn't, she's, you know, Karen at 15 doesn't get that. And a lecture about that is going to be like water off a duck. You know, good luck with that. You know.
Or worse, I'm gonna know for sure you don't understand.
Right. Now, here's some little exercises. Now, they're exercises. These are not the things that you necessarily would do in the heat of an argument, although one could. These are things that you would practice doing intentionally, okay, when things are okay or a little problematic, okay? Now, let's just run through them, and I want you to maybe practice these too, okay? So ET mindfulness, okay? ET, yes, it's ET, the extraterrestrial, okay? Okay? ET mindfulness. So, Karen, you could be my teenager. Okay, so now it's later, and you feel like, nah, this is hokey, okay? Just don't judge, okay? Just hang on, all right? But just look at the principle of it. It's later, okay, and you're upset and I'm upset, and you really feel like I'm trying to ruin your life, okay? And you don't want to hold my hand, okay? So I ask you, could you put your hand on the table?
Why?
Would you just do it? I want you to notice something, please. Okay, E.T., one finger. Okay, one finger.
Dad.
One finger. I'm right here. Try and stay mad at me now. If you could see on the table, I'm just touching her index finger. I'm doing E.T., okay? Hold your hand up. This is E.T. mindfulness, okay? I'm just touching her finger. There's physical contact. It's totally non-threatening, and you can't avoid me right now. How does it feel?
So what happens is I get more regulated and I get really sad.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But now I'm right here. And so you're not alone in your sadness, and you're 15. It's safe. You can feel really sad. I'm not going to let you fall into the hole. Right, I'm right here. Notice I didn't say anything. Words are going to get in the way. Okay, that's ET. Don't think of these as tricky technique. They're not supposed to be tricks. They're just things you can do that can allow the connection. Okay, holding hands is the obvious thing to do, right? But maybe she won't hold my hand. Maybe that's for a variety of reasons she won't do it. Okay, fair enough. She won't hold my hand. But if she won't hold my hand, there's an even bigger connection. That's even harder. Okay, that's also. But maybe she doesn't want to do ET. But maybe. Okay, shoulder to shoulder. That's the part that's touching. Shoulders. Not hating you. Do you feel me hating you now? It's hard to have the idea that I'm hating her right now, right? Could you possibly imagine after 10 seconds that I'm hating you? So the stuff in the head, it's contradicted by the rest of her brain's experience, okay? So it's touch. It's some piece of touch that's respectful, absolutely not sexual, but is going to enhance connection. And intentionally does not require conversation. Not everybody's verbal, I mean, Karen and I, we can do it. But, not everybody wants to talk about every damn thing, Sometimes you just have to, it'll be okay. And that's it. We sit here like this, and then we watch a movie, sitting on the sofa together every once in a while, do it. And then, an hour and a half later, we're both regulated, and we can have some conversation about it.
We watch the right movie. It's supposed to improve our relationship, right?
Absolutely. If you had better taste. No, sorry. I don't know what those movies are, but
Oh, well, the research showed recently that,
Yeah. Right.
things like happy couples working through problems in a happy
Right.
way. But I think that is true, and I want to bring up that it's not just father-daughter.
Oh, heavens no. Father-son, mother-daughter, partner-partner. It's, actually friends. I mean, these are not creepy, weird things to do. They're not. No, really. I mean, being able to gently touch a person, I mean, just like on the elbow, okay? This is non-threatening. And again, it's not a strategy. I'm not saying, oh, I'm being manipulative. I'm trying to make a connection. And I'm using our physical connection to help your brain notice, look at me. If you look at my face and I'm not angry, then you're going to start to perceive me as not angry.
Well, you're communicating.
I'm communicating.
You're
Right.
communicating.
Exactly. Okay, so that's E.T., holding hands, shoes. Oh, shoe mindfulness. Okay, she's the shoe meister. So assuming that you don't have an issue with shoe purchasing, okay, and if you just can't look at each other, okay, I'm having a hard time. I'm so angry at Karen. Okay, Karen could be my teenage daughter, my adult daughter, my partner, my mother. Doesn't make any difference. Okay, and now we're just sitting in the room together, and we're having this argument, and I just say, okay, can we just take a break for a minute? And I just can't, and so I start at the bottom, I'm looking down, and I see her shoes, and I can just start, she's got shiny shoes. I'm doing this in my head, not out loud, okay, but shiny shoes, got black laces, short heels, some scuff marks there. Huh. Now what happens is I start to get curious. I wonder where she got that scuff mark, what she was doing, where was she? And then I notice that she's got some black, would you call them tights? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I notice, wait a minute, there's somebody's legs and feet are in those tights and those shoes. Oh yeah. Now, psychologically, we call this priming, okay? You get your brain to switch gears doing something that's easy. Okay, and then after it's switched gears, you keep it going in the same direction doing something that's hard. So I got to let go of the judgments by describing her shoes and her tights, and then turn my descriptive attention. Now I'm describing instead of judging, and I turn my attention instead to noticing Karen. It's not about her shoes, but the shoes make the transition to being descriptive. Now I can look up and look at her and see a sad person instead of an angry one. Or a person who's at least sad and angry, not just angry. Okay, or a person who's hurt instead of a person who's trying to annihilate me. Okay?
I would think also you've interrupted building the emotion.
Exactly. We've stopped, our escalating transaction has stopped, and now, regardless of what she does for the next 30 seconds, I'm regulating myself. And so in our transaction, I've stepped down. She doesn't have to escalate. Even if she doesn't step down, I've stepped down, so she's stopped escalating. And then when I am able to look at her and my face is softer, it's very hard. It's very hard to stay really fearful of me or really angry at me, either of those things, if actually I'm not threatening and I'm not criticizing, I'm not doing anything aggressive. It's hard to stay fearful. Does that make sense? Now, the breathing together is the graduate course for couples, okay? I'm not going to demonstrate this with anybody here, but and it might sound a little strange, but for couples, literally, they can sit nose to nose, okay? Literally nose to nose, and close their eyes, and one breathes out while the other breathes in, okay? Brush your teeth first, right? Okay? Now, the idea, now don't worry, you're also getting air from around, what do you think, how many of us are in this room all day? Do you think we haven't been breathing each other's air? Sorry to gross you out, but we've been breathing each other's air. Let's just be clear about it, okay? Now, you might not be paying attention to that, but it's nevertheless true, okay? So, but the point is, if you do this with a partner, okay, it's very hard not to feel connected. And if you feel connected and you're willing to do it, there's a softness to it that makes your brain basically stop acting on either aggressive anger mode or fear withdraw mode, right? Remember, what are the two toxic things in a relationship? attacking and withdrawing. So what are the big enemies here? The big enemies are anger and fear. Okay? Even when they're justified, they're still enemies of the relationship. Okay? Whereas sadness is not. We could share sadness. Okay? I could feel guilty and do a repair. It makes it okay. We could look forward together and think about joy. That's okay. Anger and fear, they're corrosive. Okay? So breathing together can work quite nicely. And then describing the other person while the other person's busy. So, maybe Karen is doing the dishes. Maybe she's helping one of the kids with homework. Maybe she's just reading a book. She's reading a novel on the sofa. Okay? So I want you to notice that none of those things are bad things. None of those things are harmful to our relationship. They're neutral at best, at worst, and maybe they're even nice things if she's doing dishes or helping the kid with the homework. Those are nice things. Sitting and reading a book is certainly a neutral thing. It doesn't hurt anything. And so it's getting my brain, okay, again, pardon the use of this kind of technical term, but with enough arguing, she becomes an, okay, big word, aversive stimulus, okay? Which means that my brain, remember, person at the end of the relationship walks into the room, aversive stimulus, okay? Brain says, okay, I'm ready, okay? Aversive, that's, fight or flight kind of thing. Could be different emotion, but it's aversive, unpleasant, okay? I don't like it. And we avoid each other. So now I got to stop avoiding her when she's not doing things that are toxic, which is most of the time. Even in lousy relationships, most of the time we're doing neutral stuff. We might have stopped doing nice things, but we're mostly doing neutral stuff and occasionally nasty stuff. So paying attention, this is, of course, you can do this even when the other person's not around. You can have a picture of the person with you in your pocket or on your desk or on your computer, and you can spend 30 seconds just noticing that person smiling. Or a picture of the two of you doing something fun. You can say, okay, this is somebody I love. I can look at this person in the face when I get home. And maybe I haven't looked her in the face for weeks because I've been so angry or so scared. So now when I come home and I look at her in the face, it makes me smile a little bit, smile of sadness, like I'm missing that. Well, that starts a very different dance for the evening than coming home and not saying hello, not even being in the same room with her for the next 45 minutes, and then at dinner not really looking up. And now, made eye contact, I'm sad. She can live with that. It's very different.
I think part of that is like noticing and paying attention to the connection.
Exactly.
Like if I'm doing homework with our children, and then you notice that instead of having it just be a routine that happens and you overlook it, that emphasizes our connection together.
Right. Here we are in the same household.
With the same kids.
With the same kids, eating the same brand cereal, right? Something like that, or the same pancakes at least. Right. Okay, so these are things to try. If I knew who you were sitting next to, I'd have you try this. Okay, but I'm serious. It would be terrific if you could try one or more of these things like tonight. Seriously, it would be, and just notice what happens. The other person can do it too, or the other person can not have any knowledge of what you're doing. But how harmful could it be? Karen doesn't know, and I just start out looking at her shoes, and then by the time I'm finished, I'm looking at her with softness and curiosity. I'm interested. It can't be bad. It can't be. It may be very different than what we're used to doing, okay? And that's just something worth trying. Okay, now I want to tweak you before we leave here for one more minute about anger. I know anger is a very important part of American culture. Really, it is. And I know that anger works sometimes, okay? If you want to push somebody away, anger is a good way to do it. And if you're big enough, okay, anger can actually work to get what you want, right? You can basically, the other person can submit. But in a close relationship, when one person loses, the relationship loses. There's no way around that. So I'm going to argue that even when anger is justified, in other words, the other person does something for which many, many Americans would be angry, that anger may not be the thing to focus on. And that even if anger is justified, and even if you got it, I'm going to argue that every single time, you can quote me on this, every single time there are other emotions there. And that it's going to be more useful to pay attention to the other emotions, maybe with the anger, but either the other emotions alone or with the anger, than to only pay attention to the anger. The anger, even when it's justified, is corrosive to your relationship. And part of the reason it's corrosive is because when one person does it, the other person does it back. And then we're in a pissing match. Okay. Now, you don't have to agree with this, but I suggest you try it. If you think about a situation with someone you love where you expressed only anger, okay, can you think of another emotion that you might have missed? Fear could show up for sure. Disappointment in a big way, right? Hurt, right? I mean, this shows up in lots of different ways, in lots of different relationships. Can you think of something that anger, you can't think of anything besides anger that would be there? Anger would make complete sense and it would be the thing. Anger? Boredom can be misconstrued as anger, but I'm asking, can you think of a situation where if you were in charge of the world, you'd say, okay, people should be angry when that happens? Can you think of something? School shooting? Harming children? Don't you think that when there's harm, imminent harm, that fear might make a little sense here, folks? It's a little like road rage, right? You know, it's like, okay, the car, you just almost died, and you're angry. Okay, there's another emotion there, for sure. Now, I'm not saying that cursing that person briefly is the end of your life, okay? You don't have a relationship with a person, fine. But road rage is like the inability to get unstuck from the anger once you get in it. But if you actually notice, wait a minute, that was dangerous. Feeling that little bit of fear could actually be validating, self-validating. It's like, yeah, that's why I'm upset. I'm upset because of the fear. I'm angry because I was judgmental of the person. If somebody threatens your child, we better be afraid. Maybe not immobilized by fear, that's not healthy, but if fear has got to inform, what's the treatment for fear when it's justified? Action, get safe, right? If my kid falls off the slide at the playground and breaks his arm, okay, I don't have to be angry to be motivated to get him to the hospital, right? There's another emotion we have very poor language in English for, which I think we might call commitment, okay? Determination, okay? That's a very important emotion. You don't need anger to have determination. Fear will inform determination if it's a dangerous situation. The combination of fear and determination will get us safer in almost every situation than angry. Now, that's my 2 cents. Even if you disagree about it in certain circumstances, which is possible, in a close relationship, I doubt very much that anger is going to get you what you want in the long run. I just doubt it. I think that determination might. So if Karen's had an affair, well, she's my partner, she's had an affair, how do I feel? I might be angry, but what am I missing if I'm pissed off? What am I missing? Hurt and fear, right? Like maybe she doesn't want me anymore. Maybe I feel humiliated, maybe, depending on my actions, okay? Yeah, maybe if I judge myself, I might feel inadequate, right? So there's a lot of other emotions. The healthy thing here, if I want to keep our relationship, do I like her having had an affair? Sorry to put you in this little box here. You hussy, okay.
If you'd only paid attention to my shoes.
I can change. What's going to salvage our relationship? Is it anger? What is? I've got to walk the line between anger over there. What's on the other side? Yeah, well, her continuing to do it, right? Hurt, right? My hurt. So I've got to walk the line. I've got to say what I want, which is I want her to cut it out, stop having the affair, right? That's clear. That's the determination, okay? And what else? And I've got to express my hurt. She's got to understand that. And then we've got to figure out how to move forward. Now, that's complicated that we may not be able to do on our own. But anger is actually not, even though almost every adult American would say anger is justified, anger is not the thing that's going to salvage our relationship. It's just not. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. After all this, then you can open your mouth. All right. We've been through this. So I just want to point out, because we only have a few more minutes, that there are a lot of ways to validate and a lot of ways to be invalidating too. Okay? So when I don't know. So I go out on a date, okay? First date. Let's try to match the situation and what the person says. Let's assume it's accurate for now, with the level of validation that's needed. We go out on a first date, and my date says at the end of the evening, gee, you know, I had a nice time. I hope we can do this again sometime. Okay? Now, assuming I like the person, number one. I'm paying attention. Right. Am I going to get another date? Probably not. How about, yeah, you seemed like you were having a really good time. How about number three? So, what was it that I did that you especially liked? Not going to work. Benefit of the doubt is like, I know it's kind of weird that you like me, but you must have other good relationships, right? Of course you had a good time. You were with me. Number five. Respectful, not condescending. That's it. How about me too? That one might be it, right? Me too. Why? Because one person has made him or herself vulnerable. I had a good time. Maybe we can do it again. Climbing out on the limb a little bit. The only validating thing to do, really, is to climb out there with that person. That way it's not really vulnerable anymore, right? Me too. Okay? Now, let's try another one. How about we've been arguing. Had the same argument several days in a row. We're still arguing about something. Who knows what? Doesn't matter what. I'm so tired of arguing. You know, we still have a lot of things that are good in our relationship. I want to have those. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to get over this. Which one? So, yeah, I can see you're tired of fighting.
Me too.
Same thing, right? Me too. Do you see? So the vulnerability can be a very positive emotion, like I had a great time, I want to do it again. It could be a very sad emotion, like I'm tired of fighting, I don't want to do this anymore. Me too, or me neither. I mean, either way. Okay. How about Karen didn't leave the lights on in the car, or at least she believes she didn't. Okay? Right? She's 100% certain, and she could be mistaken. Okay? But I come in and I'm frustrated. You know, my car battery is dead. You left the lights on.
Do you want me to respond?
I want you to do something validating.
Oh, that must be incredibly frustrating. Oh, I know you're busy getting to work. What can we do to try to get...
So she's looking past my accusation to what? What's my emotion? Now she has a couple of choices. She can either do a number 5, because it is normal, right? That's what she's doing. Like, oh, of course you want to get to work. This has got to be really frustrating. She's actually validating something I haven't even said. It's actually a little bit of 3 and a little bit of 5. She could also say, I know you're upset with me about this, right? Because that's true. I'm directing it. I know you are. That's true. I am. Does that mean that she left the lights on? No. It means I'm upset about it. Yes. Okay? Now, these are all very important. They're different ways. Now, how about if I came home and, I'm Elizabeth, and I come home and I tell you the story about how my friends didn't have lunch with me. And I just felt, I just felt so small. I felt so, humiliated and sad about it. Not a trick question. Number 5. Can you see? Would anybody question the validity of that? It makes perfect sense, right? So it makes perfect sense means it's normal. That's the of course kind. Now for each one of these, notice there are ways to invalidate. She could say, okay, Karen could say to me, instead of course you'd feel that way, she could say, that's ridiculous, everybody likes you. Right? Trying to be kind, sweep it under the rug, totally invalidating. Because feeling humiliated and disappointed makes perfect sense. I should feel that way. I shouldn't be happy to be, the prom queen, okay? I got myself thinking more and more as myself as a teenage girl. Shouldn't have done this. All right. Now, the whole idea is that there's always something valid, okay? So those 6 levels, that's these again without the numbers. I'm just going to keep going here. I want to point out that there's a shorthand, okay? You don't have to remember the definition of all 6. All you have to remember are these 2-word phrases, okay? Seriously. They'll get you started. Uh-huh, level 1. I know, level 2. Of course, level 5. What happened, level 3. Me too, level 7. Okay, now most of us can do 2 syllables, right? Right? So try it. Throw something out there. Yes, say something. Could be accurate or inaccurate. Doesn't matter. I'm sorry, I forgot the bread? Did you need it? Well, so you're really upset with me. So that's a what? But she's not actually, I want you to point out, you're just saying I forgot the bread. You're not actually expressing any emotion. Express some emotion about it. Did you forget the bread again? Yeah. And? What are we going to eat? She's problem solving. That's fine. I don't have to validate. I'll just keep problem solving. Are you upset with me? Yes. Well, tell me.
Oh, that never works. I want to go out to dinner now, since you didn't bring the bread.
I know, you do. And I might agree to. That might be fine. Or I might, it's like the car. Yeah, I know you want to. That makes perfect sense. And, no, I think we're going to have sandwiches without bread. We have lettuce sandwiches. Okay. This is the stump Karen moment, okay? What is it you can come up with that we can't validate? Can you think of anything we can't validate?
Question.
Yeah.
What if she, going back to the car situation, she didn't leave the lights on, but she knows that she didn't, that
Yeah.
went out last or
Yeah.
whatever it is, so she can pinpoint that it wasn't her. Not
Right.
exactly who it was, but in your mind, it was her. So whenever she even validates
Yeah.
you on that, she still feels as though you accused her of something.
True.
Then what happens when a few weeks later, whenever she
Well, I wouldn't encourage her to wait 3 weeks. I would encourage Karen tonight, well, actually, I would encourage me tonight to come back and say, I think I accused you kind of unfairly. That would be the better thing to do. But if I don't do that, I still have it in my mind, then I would encourage Karen to bring that up and say, I know that was so frustrating to get in the car and have the battery be dead this morning. I know that. But it was pretty, I don't know, what word would you use? I was attacking you, blaming you. How did you feel?
But it felt a little sad, that where you went with that was anger at me. And of course, I wouldn't let the car lights on so you couldn't go to work. Of course, I would never.
Of course not. Of course not. Right. Okay, so of course not. Okay, I know. I know that really hurt your feelings. I know that really hurt your feelings. So maybe I can't think of anything else, but I know that it did. Of course, it would be great if I could say, I'll work on not being so quick to blame you. Maybe just being able to be frustrated with the situation.
But for me,
that would be great.
For me, it's keeping the bigger picture in my mind and assuming the best of someone that I love, that he really is not out to hurt me.
Right.
And that can make a huge difference as long as you can keep that. He may do it, but I don't think he intends to do it.
Of course not. No, I'm not gaslighting. You know the term gaslighting? I'm not gaslighting her. I'm not saying, oh, I know that you did it when I know she didn't, and I'm just trying to make her feel bad. I'm not intentionally trying to make her feel bad. I really, at that moment, am thinking black and white, and I don't remember leaving them on, so the kids are too young, they don't drive the car, so it must have been her. But of course, that's a really dysfunctional pattern.
How do you stop it from turning into a fact?
That's a great question. In the long run, actually I'd be interested to hear what you say, but what I tell people is in the long run, the facts don't matter.
Facts don't matter.
It's exactly the opposite of what 99% of families have in mind when they come in my door, which is that I'm going to validate them and tell them that the other one's wrong, which of course I never do as a therapist, okay? And I don't know if you would agree, but the facts are irrelevant. Now, 99% irrelevant, okay? I mean, you have to stay within the factual world, okay? But the facts are that somebody left the lights on and the car battery's dead. Is it the most important? Now, if she really does keep leaving the lights on, okay, if she really does, and that irritates me, we've got to problem solve that. Of course we do. But if in this particular case, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Nobody's left the lights on in a car in my family for years, so I don't remember. But if this were a habitual thing, we'd have to figure out how to stop it. Of course, it's a problem. But if that happened once, and we each think the other person did it, all that is corrosive. Instead of just like poor situation. I'm going to work late and I'm inconveniencing Karen because she's got to take me, or it costs $30 to take a taxi or something. I mean, it's just a crappy situation. It's life.
I sort of figure that right and wrong is not that helpful most of the time in a specific situation.
Right.
And so you ask yourself, what is going to contribute to us being in the same boat, going forward in a happy way? And am I going to say something that's going to contribute to that or take away from that?
Right. Right. This is the slightly more crude way of saying it is don't soil your own nest. Yeah, the cheating part is very incendiary. Well, hang on, but there's no disagreement about facts there. There's no disagreement about facts. Of course, there is how do I say this? The question isn't which one of us cheated with that person over there, okay? Which one of us did? We know which one of us did, okay? I know it wasn't me.
It was me.
Okay? So it's not, and that's not a dispute of facts, We might argue about whether, 6 months ago when she said she was going to her friend's house, whether that particular night she was actually going to her friend's house. I'm sure that you were going out with that guy, and she's sure that she had stopped the affair by then. That doesn't really matter. Okay? That's what I mean by the details. The details don't matter. Well, there is a fact of an affair. The fact of an affair is relevant, of course. I think I was a little too big in my statement, but yes. Yeah. Yeah. Here's a challenge. I like that.
I drove my child to school and I was drunk and I killed her. And
You drove your child to school.
And I was drunk and she's dead. And now everyone hates me and I just think the world would be better off without me.
Yeah. Okay, so what's valid about this? Well, what's valid about it is you must be feeling terrible about that. That does make sense to me. And there's got to be a lot of pain associated with that.
What's the reason to go on?
What's our relationship?
Therapist.
I'm your therapist?
Yeah.
Well, that's our job to figure that out.
Yeah.
What else there is besides that? If I were your therapist, of course, we'd have to think about how you could do a repair to move on with your life. You'd have to find out you can't do a repair with your dead child. Child's dead. It doesn't get any harder than this, okay? But the question is, can you find some meaning in other things in your life and recommit, overcommit, what we would call, I guess sometimes you think of it as kind of like overdoing the repair, okay? Kind of like extending it more in order to create meaning and compensate, do, a kind of like I'm repairing. And I actually have worked with people in this kind of situation, so.
Where you're kind of validating their
It's true.
worthlessness, but ultimately your therapeutic goal
Right.
is to find
It makes perfect sense that you would despair in this situation. That makes perfect sense, that you would despair. Our job is to have you not only despair. I can't imagine that 20 years from now you won't also have despair about this. But my goal as your therapist would be for 20 years from now for you to have 19.9 years of increasingly other things in your life besides despair, along with the despair. Not that it will make the despair stop or go away, but that you could have a valuable life in balance with the despair. That would be my hope, right? Because,
I think that's the overall picture, and I think
Right.
in the moment, you don't want to move too quickly away from that. It's like you're...
No, there's grief, there's sadness, there's this, this is a case where shame is justified.
Right.
Shame is justified.
And so you stay with that. You
And
validate
the
that.
treatment for shame when it's justified is to allow it and tolerate it and then repair and then move on from it. And a smaller example would be, if I've had the affair, okay, I've got to stop doing the affair, and then what's the repair? What's the repair? That's part of it. Part of it is I need to tolerate Karen's hurt, not say she should be over it. Okay, and the more I say, okay, you already told me that, the more I'm invalidating her hurt. The more I say, okay, I'm willing to sit and listen to it again because I know I'm the one that caused the hurt. And actually, paradoxically, the more I'm willing to do that, the faster she's going to not feel so hurt anymore. Of course, I have to stay not having an affair. There's probably one more thing I have to do as a true repair, right? I have to stop flirting with, the Xerox repair woman and stuff, whoever it is that I'm having the affairs with. I need to put more reins on my behavior. That's part of the repair too. Would you agree?
Yes, and make me feel more special.
Absolutely, right. My attention more directed in not diffused around other people, right. All right, so that leads us back to the beginning and back to the end, which is, remember, validate the valid, don't invalidate the valid, don't validate the invalid, invalidate the invalid, but only occasionally after validating the valid. Okay.
Wow.
Now, you can take that home with you, right? It's easy enough. I think we're supposed to stop in just a couple minutes, but I'm happy to answer some questions.
Sure.
You okay? You don't have to run either?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
so,
fine. I think we're signing. Are we signing books?
If people want to, we
Yeah.
certainly can. So I'll leave you with that.
You want these?
Kind of wiggles. Yep. Thank you. All right, so we have a couple of questions here. Is that okay? So one is, what about if you have a loved one who's dysregulated, but your loved one has small children? Okay, so you've got grandchildren or nieces and nephews or just little kids that you feel you love, and your loved one is their dysregulated parent. Well, that's tricky. Obviously, we need to validate the kids, That's probably the first thing. We need to validate the parent that it's not easy to be a dysregulated parent. It's not easy to be a parent sometimes, and it's harder to be a dysregulated parent. And we probably want to help them get help. I don't know, that's the short answer. What do you think?
No, yes, and absolutely, we're back to regulating yourself, too.
Yep.
You know, because you can be the stone, the rock, if you keep yourself regulated. That can also create safety for people that are feeling unsafe.
Right. And that means not think that it's your responsibility to make everything okay. There's just so much any one of us can do, and we can do that, and we have to stop and then retreat and
Take care of ourselves.
breathe and eat and find fun things to do that aren't connected and come back with more energy again.
Yeah, and look at what you can do that's effective, and then
Right.
pull back.
Exactly.
It seems as if our instincts are wrong. When I heard, I will never find another person who is so right for me, I will never love anyone else, I can't believe I lost her, I wanted to reassure. I wanted her to look to the future, and since those impressions were not true, show her those impressions were not true. Assure her those impressions were not true, sorry. Knowing that there's likely to be another love. I wish validation was instinctive, and I don't understand why it isn't. It should be.
Say no more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a great example of when reassurance can be invalidating. Instead of saying, you know, gee, of course you're going to find another love, a better one, you might say, it's awful to think this was your best chance. To be as young as you are and to think you just blew your best chance, that's got to be totally awful and full of just dread and despair. And just leave it at that.
I think that's a good example that validation's not always sweet.
Because we don't really know, you know. There are people, right, whose loved ones die or leave them, who never find another relationship that's worth having. It happens. It does happen. There are lots of places where second, third one around is better. You know, we don't know. We don't have crystal balls. So, but regardless, you know, so there are no, I think it's useful to say there are no facts about the future. Right? There aren't any facts about the future. There are only guesses. And if we get a little too certain about the future, we run the risk of being very invalidating.
What resources are available to parents to help them develop validating parenting behaviors?
Karen's book.
Well, that was validating.
Karen's book. And Karen's book. Seriously, I think that's a good answer.
Family connections.
Family connections is a possibility, especially not so much parents of very small children.
That's all I know, too, actually.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly are other resources for parents, most of which don't focus directly on validating and invalidating. They do indirectly, like there's a whole area called the socialization of emotion, which is really about accurately helping children learn to identify their emotion in a way that's accurate. Some parenting programs are built on that. That can be helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Has there been any research done on the best way to support and nurture siblings of someone with DVT? Because I think if you have, especially children around the same age, and
Yeah.
one is dysfunctional, when you were doing the thing with the door and the shut and trying to talk to the teenagers,
Yep.
I'm imagining two other kids standing there, one saying she's crazy, one, you know, one
Yep.
pulling for your attention. Has there been work done on that?
There's not very much research.
No.
Sibling research is actually not happen a lot. It's actually, you know, the important thing is not to be crazy making. It's you know, again, if we can find a balanced approach to validate the valid, like, well, you know, your sister's obviously having a hard day. That's descriptively true. And if we can handle that without us freaking out, that's pretty good modeling for the sibling. It's like, okay, sister's having a bad day. We can handle that. It's not a threat to our family. So modeling is really useful, I would say.
Yes, I would agree. I think that it's also, so going in two different directions here, but I think it's also I'm a broken record, but when you can regulate yourself, then the whole family doesn't become about the dysregulation. That can pass, and then the other kids get attention too. Even though it's also important not to just give attention to the child who has difficulty with regulation when they're dysregulated, because otherwise that increases that behavior. So again, I think it comes back to really staying, sort of the same thing you said, staying as regulated as you can.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things I was struggling with that takeaway from today is not allowing yourself to just change what behavior you're letting your loved ones have as an invalidating response. So a lot of your recommendations were pause now, reconnect later.
Right. Capitulate is not a strategy.
Where do you draw the line, and how do you make those positive declarations actually stick?
Well, I think, if I understand what you're saying, then I think that what we're looking at is effective behavior. So you validate first, because just changing the behavior doesn't, the emotion's still there. So you want to validate and the change in behavior is going to come over time. You validate the emotion first. Then if you believe that the change is an effective one and one you want to do, then you can come back and say, I've been thinking about this, and this is what I would like to do. And I know it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be perfect, and I'm going to have times that I don't do whatever I'm saying I'm going to do. And when that happens, I'll work on it and try again. Did that answer your question?
You don't problem solve in a crisis.
No.
You can't.
Yeah, you don't try to get them to be quiet by saying, I'll do it differently.
Just kind of want to make a comment. What I'm kind of taking away from this whole view is that it's more about setting up rapport and setting a foundation to have a relationship that is trusting and that person can feel whenever you do make recommendations, like you come to a DBT center or something like that. It's based not out of an attack or anything like that. It's out of trust.
If you can remember the song, I think what we're talking about is creating safety, And when you have that safety, then you can have conversations. Then you can problem solve. Then you can move forward in the relationship. And validation is about creating a safety.
Well, and I just want to touch base real quickly again on the medication that we talked about earlier, and validating that youth on their feelings, yet knowing the importance of the medication too. Because I've struggled with it as well with my son, and the medication is an important thing, and worked every idea, like bringing it to him, I'm set myself and say, hey, wake up, babe, here's your medicine, go. But it is important to, how do you still validate it? You may not get the right answer, they still might not take it, but at least that they're to get that trust in the relationship. Because a 16-year-old teenager doesn't want to trust their parents. That's probably the last person they want to trust their parents.
Right. So if, I think what you're getting at is that, how do I say? I think maybe what Karen and I are both saying is that validation makes it possible to do other things. Validation doesn't necessarily do everything. Validation may make it possible to do problem solving, and make it more likely that then, Jackie, that if you're my teenage daughter, that when I say, okay, so what is it about the medicine right now that's driving you crazy? That interest, that curiosity, which is validating. And you tell me, I say, well, let's make an appointment to see the doctor. And maybe it takes 2 weeks to get in.
It's to get you to the point where you can
Have the conversation, right, exactly. And I might learn that, you might tell me something that makes me extremely sympathetic to you not wanting to take it. Huge side effects. So I completely understand why you don't want to take it. That's entirely, I'm open to that possibility. And that's where the accurate expression comes in. You might just say, no, this is stupid, I hate it. Well, that makes sense. And if I don't understand it more, it's like, well, it's stupid and you hate it because, it makes you feel a little fuzzy for a few minutes or a couple hours, and then you feel better all day. But now what you're saying is actually you have a splitting headache all day, and it's giving you diarrhea, and I think it's time for a med change. Absolutely. I agree with you. So let's get it changed. So validation is not enough. I can't just keep saying, I know that's really hard and do it. If I really get how hard it is, we're working on the same page to do something different. So yeah.
First of all, I would like to appreciate both of you for your past the closing time. I would like to ask, how do I better communicate or respond when an expression of self-validation is seen as, or self-validation or limit setting is seen directly as invalidation?
Yeah. That's a really good question, actually. So the question was, well, what about when observing a limit, okay, is perceived as invalidating, as experienced, or at least the person says that's invalidating. So when I say, you know, if Karen is my sister and she's having a panic attack and, you know, I've got, for whatever reason, I've got, you know, kids with the flu or I just don't feel like it and I'm not willing to come to her apartment and spend the night on her couch, you know. So, you know, how do I? And I'm saying, you know, I did this last week, and I've got other things I'm not doing at this time, and she feels abandoned. Okay, I would say abandonment is probably the emotion, lonely, self-judging, you know, and then judging me. How do we? You know, yeah, I would say you stick to your limit, and you soothe. I know it's really hard that I'm not coming over. That's got to feel terrible. It's got to be scary because it's a lot easier if I'm there. I'll come over another time, but I'm not going to come over tonight. So what else could you do? Start to turn the tables and try to get them to problem solve another solution. I'm taking the problem seriously. I'm just not taking that solution that she's got. It's hard.
I think that, you know, what we're saying is validation lowers the emotion. We're not saying in all cases it'll take it all away. Right. You know, that if you say something like that, that's going to go over better versus no, I'm not doing it. That's it. I'm not. You know, it's the communication of belonging and I love you, I care about you, and right now I really.
And I'll do more another time, but not. I'm not doing more now.
Right now tonight. Let's see what else we can do, and it may not, but it'll be a more effective response than not giving the validation.
Right. All right. I think we're dwindling.
Right.
You guys are great, by the way.
I'll just,
Yay! You are best audience.
You know, even good things have to come to an end, and I hope you viewed this day the way I did. I think it was absolutely stunningly successful. I hope it helped all of you. And you have been a great, super audience. I have to give thanks to the Council on Alcohol and Drugs for their work with us. I think we'd all ought to come back here again and do this another time. I think so.
Our AV guy.
And, okay, and then
Here's for the AV
oh yeah,
guy. He made it all
our
happen.
AV guy still at it. He's great. And then our community partners that helped sponsor and pay for part of the activities. Everything just came together perfectly, including the twosome to my right. I think, they've been accused, they don't realize it, several times. How many times have they done this together? They're so incredible. And I said, they've never done this together, ever, before. In fact, I'm not even sure they had an easy time communicating about what each was going to do.
She picked me up under the freeway last night.
But anyways, I just think the two of them were the best. Five more words. Go ye forth and validate. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim.